All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Brown School at Washington University's virtual information session. My name is Joshua Lewa, and I serve as the Associate Director for Admissions and Recruitment here at the Brown School. Today's topic we're going to be covering is tips for submitting your best application. And so we received some of your questions in advance, and that's great. But what we're going to do is cover a bunch of topics, and then I want to make sure that you all have a chance to submit your questions live to the broadcast itself. So we actually have a couple of students that we have here. We have Kellen Roybal and Sarah King, both representing social work, public health, and actually a joint degree between social work and the MBA program. And so I'm going to have them introduce themselves here in a moment. So if each of you can give us your name, hometown, year in the program, degree program or programs, and then your concentration or specialization area.
Hi, I'm Sarah King. I'm a first-year MPH, concentrating in health policy analysis. I'm from LA, but I went to school in Connecticut.
Nice. And my name is Kellen Roybal. I'm a current second-year MSW MBA joint degree student studying health and healthcare administration. And I'm from Denver, Colorado, and moved out here last year.
Great. Thank you both. So, today's topic is about covering the application process. When we're on the road, we get a lot of questions, and when students come to campus or call our office, they have a lot of questions about this. Actually, the way it really comes up is this. What's the percentage of people that you accept? How many people apply to your program? What do you look for? What's the minimum GPA or GRE, or how much experience do I need to have? And the bottom line you're asking, for most people, the bottom line question is, am I going to be accepted? And so the goal of today is really to give you as much information so that you can feel that you put yourself in the best position to be accepted to our program. We have a great process that's really open and inclusive and allows for a lot of opportunity, and so we're gonna get you there. Now, it could be a very stressful time for many of you. It could be one of those times where a lot of you are really busy, whether you're currently working full-time or you're currently trying to wrap up your undergraduate degree, or you could be maybe taking care of a family or a loved one, and so this is a very stressful time. And so our job is to really quiet the noise and to make this process as direct as possible. And this is not the last opportunity. We want to welcome you to contact us after this session to make sure that you get support in this time-consuming opportunity. So with that being said, there are going to be some noises that you might hear in the background. We actually have the Chancellor inauguration happening right now, and so that's going to be going on throughout the day. And so if you hear something's going on in the background, that was my magic of making all of that go away. We're just going to roll with it because that's how we do things, and we know that we're doing the work that we do. It can never go direct, it can never go perfect, and we kind of like it that way. It allows us a space to make things better. So we're going to jump into our PowerPoint to talk about a few important pieces here next. So we have some deadlines to talk with you about. The first one here is our priority consideration deadline, which is December 15th. Students who apply by December 15th will receive their decision from us no later than February 1st. If you receive your decision during this timeline, it's not a binding decision like most early action processes you went through maybe in your undergraduate applications. It just means that you've committed to get your application completed by December 15th, and we're committing to giving you your answer by February 1st. Again, you do not need to give us an answer back as far as if you decide to come and join us here at the Brown School until May 1st, which is the deposit deadline. The next priority deadline is regular decision. Regular decision is March 1st, and if you apply and complete your application between December 16th and March 1st, you'll get your response back to us within 4 to 6 weeks. We have a really strong and good turnaround time from our review committee. And again, you will not need to give us your commitment until May 1st. And then after that, we have a rolling admissions process, which means that after March 1st, we will continue to take applications. And again, you'll get about a 4 to 6 week turnaround. And we want to make sure that you will have your deposit to us for most of you by May 1st. Throughout the application process, we definitely encourage students to apply as soon as possible. There are a few things that you probably want to pay attention to throughout the application. Here's the biggest thing is this. You can see between the MSW, the MPH program, actually, that should be MPH, and then the MSP program, there are different requirements. And so, as you can notice, the MSW, we do not require the GRE. So please be clear about that. And there are no prerequisites. For the MPH, there is no analytical essay. but we do require the GRE, which is different from the MSW application. There's also a human biology prerequisite. That prerequisite needs to be completed within your first year of the program. And if you have any questions about a course that you've actually taken, why don't you go ahead and email us that syllabus, and we can let you know if that class counts or not. And then the MSP program, you can see there is no analytical essay, there is no GRE, there is no scholarship interview, and there is no prerequisites as far as coursework is concerned. For our international applicants, there are a few things that we want you to pay attention to. One of them, of course, is that we require your transcripts to be in English in order for us to be able to officially have it translated by one of the services that are out there. You can also use WES, which is WES, and they're really good at doing that work. And then on SOFAS is another application for our public health folks who are going to be applying to the program. We do require the TOEFL or the IELTS for students who or applicants who come from countries whose national language is not English or who have not completed their undergraduate degrees here within the U.S. And so for more information on that, contact our office and we can help you. The other thing that you want to pay attention to is if an admission decision is made in your favor, you will need to provide proof of financial support, which means your ability to pay in consideration of any scholarship that you receive from us. And of course, all of our international students and domestic students are eligible for our merit-based scholarships and some of our need-based scholarships that the Brown School offers as well. Regarding the dual degree program applications, we really treat these as two separate applications. So if you're doing a MPH and MSW application or you're doing one of the MPH MSW programs with the MSP application, you're applying to all these programs separately. So that sounds like a lot. Maybe I made it a little more confusing than I needed to, but in the end, really you're applying to both programs separately. Both programs are going to be reviewed separately and admission decisions are going to be made separately. There's only going to be one interview for merit-based scholarships through the video. And if you're unsure, apply to just one program for now. So if, for instance, if you're on the fence about your public health degree or you're on the fence of the MSW degree, but you know you want the other one, you can definitely during your first year apply to some of the additional programs that we have to offer you while you're here at the university. And we'll work with you through the admissions office throughout that process. And then finally, our joint degree requirements. As you can see, we have a number of really great joint degree options. Applying to both programs, you have to apply to them individually. Admission reviews are very separate, and again, they're at very separate financial aid or scholarship opportunities provided by the different schools within the university. Make sure that when you're applying to the Brown School in our application that you indicate that you are applying for a joint degree as well. So with that being said, I really want to kind of get this conversation to one of our students, and so we do have Kellen, who also is doing the joint degree with the MBA program. And so, Kellen, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us your experience about going through the joint degree application process.
Absolutely. So the joint application process is exactly as Josh had mentioned. I did have to put out 2 different applications in the same timeline. Or depending on what degree it is you're applying to, they might have slightly different timelines. So for example, the business school has 3 different deadlines at which you can apply to: the end of October, the beginning of January, or the end of March, I believe it is. And you can apply in any one of those, whereas the Brown School only had December and March as well. They vary across what degree program you will be applying to. And so you do have to kind of juggle a little bit your recommendations and the application requirements there. And I would also recommend, trying to find different recommenders for each application, because you want to choose recommenders that can really speak to your capabilities in the competencies and criteria that an application for a program might be looking for. So for the business side, they might want more experiential learning or employment recommendations, and for the social work, they might be experiential or former employment, and they can also be academic. So it really just kind of depends on the application to which you're applying to. So definitely the 2 pieces of advice I have are: 1, juggle appropriately, and 2, really think about who can, when in terms of your recommendations, who can speak to your strengths as they apply to the different programs.
That's great. Thank you, Kellen, for being able to answer that so well. I think right now what we're going to do is talk about our application review process. So when it comes to our application review process, we actually have a holistic review. And the point of a holistic review is we don't just look at a bottom line GRE score for the public health degree program or a bottom line GPA or amount of experience. We actually look at everything. The point of this is to make sure that we get the full story of students. And so what you see in front of you is really some questions that are utilized to help maybe prime your thinking as you're going into the application. These aren't questions that are actually on the application itself, but these are questions that, again, will help prime your thinking as you're doing some reflection about how you want to show up and what story that you're going to tell that's your truth in your application, what experiences that you're going to share, what are your passions, what are your interests for the future. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to know exactly what you want to do in the future, the next 2, 3, 5, 50 years of your life. But we do want to know kind of what are your values, what are your experiences, and what direction you're thinking that you're going to so far. As far as the application review process, again, we mentioned that it's a holistic review process. The idea behind this is that everybody has a whole set of roles. You could be somebody who's coming straight from undergrad who has some significant research and leadership experiences and you're jumping right into graduate school, like I did. Or you can be somebody who's gone out and has had different experiences professionally or personally. And we have people who've, again, I've kind of given these examples a lot, but shout out to Carrie, who practiced law for 7 or 8 years and then decided to come back and get an MSW degree. And we have folks who are practicing physicians who are coming back and getting public health degrees. And so it's a whole range of people. And so again, you really want to think about who you are, your previous experiences, and then what do you think that you're going to bring with you as you move forward with this degree, and how are you going to try to be a contribution in your own interested ways, ways that will sustain you throughout your career. All right. So with that being said, this is a question actually for both of you. If you can think about the holistic approach and how it shapes your experience in the classroom, I'd like to hear from you both about kind of that our approach to looking at you as whole people through the application process, and does that line up at all or make sense with your academic experience and interpersonal experiences at the Brown School?
So I think the holistic review process really makes it, like, we have so many different people from so many different life stages. When we have discussions in class, we hear from doctors about how to treat patients and how that kind of changes when they approach things from a public health standpoint. We have friends who are coming from being a teacher, and so they're approaching public health in a completely different lens than the doctors are, but both experiences bring so much value to the table, and it really kind of sheds light on how holistically and how individually we look at each person and each application.
Yeah, I think that hits the nail right on the head, particularly, and I would also just reiterate the fact that the experiences are so varied in and out of the classroom, and so you'll get different perspectives on even just homework assignments or conversations that you have in the hallway, and you really get just a really broad scope of what it means to be a transdisciplinary professional through and through, both in the classroom and outside. So,
thank you both. Yeah, so I mean, as you can see, well, first of all, we just have some outstanding students, and I really like them. But I appreciate your stories. We're going to get a chance for you to all to share some more. Let's talk about letters of recommendation. This is one of the key areas in the application itself. So you are going to be asked to submit 3 letters of recommendation, and the people who should be submitting these letters should be either academic, at least one academic person. It could be a professional, maybe a past supervisor, and then either an academic or professional person, as the third one. Now, there's a question that comes up from some folks who are maybe been out of school for 3, 5, 10 years, and they're wondering if they may not be in touch with some of their academic relationships, maybe past professors from their undergraduate years. And so, we ask that you consider maybe some professional references would probably be where you want to focus your energy. And we'll take that into consideration. Again, we're looking at the whole story here. So with that being said, for Sarah and Kellen, I do have another question for you, and this is regarding kind of how did you choose, I know you kind of hinted at this with the joint degree program, but how did you choose your recommenders as you went through the application process?
Yeah. Well, to that point, it's just who I thought could really describe a piece of me that I wanted to show through on my application. So for example, I chose a faculty member who I worked with very closely in my undergrad to kind of give that academic experience, but then I chose my volunteer supervisor and my work supervisor to kind of demonstrate the holistic capabilities that I bring to the table in the professional sense as well. So you kind of balance that out. And then for my business school application, I did a little bit of the same approach. I used someone who I no longer worked for, but owned her own business to kind of just talk about my capabilities in the entrepreneurial light. And so it's really just about what strength do I have and who can attest to that strength. And that's my piece of advice for the recommendations. What would you add, Sarah?
Kind of reiterating everything Kellen said, it was really about finding professors that I've had a really long relationship with, who I definitely taken a lot of classes with, because I was coming almost straight from undergrad. I only took a year off. And so all of my recommendation writers, they all knew me for at least 2-3 years. I'd worked on some individual projects with them. They knew my strengths, also my weaknesses, but definitely wrote about my strengths. And so that was what was most important to me, I feel.
That's great. One of the things that you actually reminded me of, Sarah, is the point of having recommenders who've known you at least a year or more. I do get this question a lot. Actually, we do get this question a lot, where people are wondering if they did maybe they're doing a internship that's maybe, or a practicum experience that's a few months right prior to their application, if they should utilize that person since that person's been able to see them in a professional light. Well, here's the strong recommendation we have here. These folks have been able to see for a few months, and so they're while that I'm sure the experiences are great, it's just not enough data for them to be able to observe in order to give you a recommendation that we want to rely on. And so what we do is we really encourage you to look for people who've known and they've known you for a year or more. I always make the joke that I can be on my best behavior for 3 months, 6 months, but after that, then you can maybe take their true measure of who I am as a person, and I don't think I'm any special in that regard. So we really encourage you to look for people who've known for a year or more. All right, we're going to talk about our personal statement as our next topic to cover. All right, so our personal statement this is where I really, if you're going to be taking notes during this presentation live, or if you're going to watch the replay with us, this is where I think you really want to pay a lot of attention. For your personal statement, it's designed to give you room where you can share why you're applying to the program. And so what you see here are maybe some of the prompts that you'll see. What are the significant factors influencing your decision? Some of the leadership experiences that you have that you're going to bring with you that are going to contribute to your overall success as a student and in the profession. What do you want to do in the future? Maybe if it's not as specific, in general areas do you want to work with in the future that are connected to your commitment to social change? And then specific reasons, and we use that word really clearly, specific reasons why the Brown School is a good fit for your education. What we recommend is you look at those areas, and it's an opportunity for you to really do some reflection so that you can tell your story. You need to answer the questions, why are you applying? We feel like we are the best school, and so why are we the best school for you, though, specifically? So you're going to do research, look at our faculty online, look at our research centers. Maybe you've visited us or you've watched one of these sessions and there's something that really stands out, but speak specifically to us. When it comes to your degree, how are you going to contribute to both not only the Brown School community, but your time beyond? And then after you graduate, again, what do you hope to do? We recommend that you read and then reread your personal statements like you're in school if you haven't been in school for a while, and then have somebody who you trust who's willing to give you some honest feedback, maybe edit it or give you some feedback on this as well. So I guess I have this question for Kellen and Sarah, for both of you. As you kind of maybe think back to your process, specifically with the Brown School applications of doing that personal statement, if you can tell us a little bit about maybe any tips that you now, in hindsight and retrospect, would have for someone who's applying to the program now.
Mm-hmm.
So I was definitely trying to kind of like tell a story about my experiences and kind of roll that into how that brought me to where I am, or where I was applying to the Brown School. I really did a lot of research into seeing what the Brown School was about, seeing what they were doing, and seeing how I could contribute and how that would kind of enhance my own career goals. I didn't have the opportunity to visit the Brown School because I was in LA and it was very far. But it was really interesting to see all of the information sessions that kind of shed light about everything the Brown School is about and everything that would really enhance my idea of what public health could be and how I could contribute to the field.
Yeah. I want to highlight that piece of telling a story. So what that personal statement really is just showcasing who you are as an applicant to our review committee and to the Brown School community as a whole. And I think that's one of the most quintessential factors in this application, kind of hallmarks the holistic review, because we're all bringing to the table a numerous amount of passions and previous work experiences and academic experiences. And so just kind of weaving that story of how those have helped you grow, how they're bringing you to the grad school table right now, and where you see that extending for you in the future. And then to touch back on that that point, just how that story can impact the Brown School and how that story can also be impacted by the Brown School. And I think that just makes a great case for the narrative, because it's just what the community, if I may speak for them, they're just really looking to know who you are as an applicant and what you think you can contribute to either public health or social work or social policy. So yeah, tell that story and they'll be excited to read it.
Great. Yeah, so absolutely. I think that those are all really great points. These essays are, we're going to go into the analytical essay, which is for the social work degree. They're really 2 pages, single space. And you know, I would say the challenge should be, especially in a personal statement, is keeping it down to 2 pages. If you've done a lot of reflection, did the research that's been recommended by my colleagues here, and to make sure that you're able to tell your story. All right, we're going to talk next about the analytical essay. Our social work students, again, are going to follow these prompts here. You're going to identify an issue. The issue could be something of importance to you. It's a 2-page single-space one, and you're going to describe the issue and some of the key factors. This is a chance for you to maybe pull in some outside sources to show that you have an understanding or an analysis of whatever the issue is. You're going to come up with some plausible solutions to the issue and steps for implementation of those solutions. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to have all the answers on how to figure out a major issue. Otherwise, you wouldn't be coming to grad school. You'd be fixing the issue. What we want to do is we want to see how you think here. You're going to come up with some challenges to your approach to seeking that solution. And then, again, a 3rd page can be used when you cite those sources that supports your entire analytical essay. This essay really should be looked at kind of like a academic paper. It's going to be a chance for you to demonstrate your critical thinking. Make sure that you're hitting all the marks, you're addressing the entire prompt. I say this with the personal statement and the analytical essay in both applications. Actually, in all 3 applications, is hit the marks, answer the prompts. That's just a critical piece, and I can't stress that. Well, I could, but I'm not going to stress it anymore. Just hit the marks. And then, of course, try to be specific in your citations if you need to, or be specifics with the prompt. With that being said, I guess, Kellen, you're the one who went through the analytical essay.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's talk. Are you okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure you've recovered from it.
It was a piece of cake.
Okay, talk to us about
it.
it.
I'm kidding. So it was challenging in that 2 single-space pages is really not a lot of room. So if you think about it, it's like a 4-page double-space paper, depending on how you cite and everything to that nature. And so I found the greatest challenge to be was scaling down what I thought my issue was, because I'm really interested in health equity, and that's why I'm coming to grad school. And what are the barriers to patients receiving care and receiving cost-effective care or accessible care? And so that's just like 2 pages in and of itself, if not more. So a big piece of doing that for me was kind of trying to scale that down and really kind of talking within my own experience. So at the time I was a volunteer in an emergency room, and so I saw a few issues and I was like, okay, well, what could I do with a social work degree to describe that in an evidence-based way in a paper. And so I just focused on one specific treatment that I had found in research and how I saw that implementing and what I think I can do with that, both in grad school and beyond. And that's a very high level, but the point of all of this is to say, just talk on a more specific level. You don't need to solve world hunger within the space of 2 pages, even though it might feel like that's what the prompt is looking for. Just, what's a problem? What is the very first thing that you could think of to even begin addressing that problem, and then back that up with a couple sources, and I'd say that's perfect.
It's great. Thank you both. And again, just a reminder, we do have a pretty really momentous occasion today with the inauguration of our new chancellors. Our chancellors stick around in these roles apparently for 20 to 24 years, and so this is a pretty big. So if you hear any noise in the background of some music playing, that's just people getting ready for that big celebration. Thank you both. Thank you, Kellen, for that answer. Actually, we're going to turn this next question to the GRE. So for the GRE, for the MPH program, we do require the GRE. Only for the MPH program, that's required through SOFIS and through kind of all applications. As you're exploring your applications for the GRE, you can see our SOFIS code up there. For our MSWs, if you turn in the GRE score, we're not going to look at it. And so that doesn't happen often, but people occasionally want to kind of boost their application. I just encourage you not to do that, but for the public health degree program, definitely this is a part of the application. If you have some of these other scores available, we will take these in the place of the GRE. So you can see the dental admission exam, the GMAT, the LSAT, MCAT, PCAT, and then for folks who've received a medical degree outside of the country, you can also take the USMLE. We'll accept that as well as a part of it. As far as scores for the GRE, we are looking for around the 50th percentile and scores that are 5 years or less old. Remember, when you're applying through SOFIS, which is the application process for the MPH program, it takes about 30 days. Plan in about 30 days between the completion of your GRE and it showing up to SOFIS in order to make sure that you have a good timeline for when your application will be complete. With that being said, we're going to move on to transcripts. All right. So while applying for the MSW program, you can upload your unofficial transcripts. For folks who may be in school now or within the last 5 years, you can upload those. If any institution you've gone to for 6 or more credit hours, we need to see those, and so make sure that you get those. And then if you're admitted and enrolled, then of course we'll need to get your official transcripts, and you'll get a request from that later in the process. For public health, you're actually going to have to get your official transcripts directly applied to the SOFIS application, so you do not need to send your applications or your transcripts to us. And again, if your degree was in progress at the time of applying, then that's when you will need your official transcript sent to us after you're admitted to the program itself. All right, when it comes to resume, we actually use language of comprehensive resume or CV. What this means is there is no page limit. I know from some of you who are coming out of undergrad, you're told to only make a 1-page resume. Nobody wants to see all that experience. Well, that's not our truth. That might be true for other jobs or programs, or for us, we want to see the long version. This is your chance to brag. This is your chance to talk about your leadership, your volunteer, your research experience, your professional experiences. We really try to encourage you not to put high school experiences unless you feel like they have inspired or initiated your path towards a career in social work or public health. But again, so if you find that old application, the long form one that's becoming 2-3 pages, and you feel like it makes sense, then we ask that you give us the comprehensive one. We want to know your story. As far as merit-based scholarships, we actually have an interview process. What you see on the screen there on the right side is a platform that we use. If you want to be considered for a merit-based scholarship, you'll just click that in the application itself that says you want to be considered for that. Requesting merit does not impact whether we admit you or not, and all students who request it will be reviewed for it. So in the application, or actually in the interview, you're going to need a smartphone, or I guess a webcam or iPad, something that can record you and utilize the software that we use or the program that we use. There are going to be 5 questions, and then there's going to be a written question at the very end. There are no right or wrong answers. This is just a really good opportunity for you to have another way of getting us information, so that we can take a look at you holistically and get you max you out with as much funding as possible, which is really our goal. All right. So Sarah and Kellen, this Kira interview is kind of a newer, well, we've now been doing it for I think 3 years. And so, it's kind of a newer thing. If you could talk about your experiences with it, the good, the bad, the ugly, but just maybe kind of in retrospect, what advice would you give for folks to ease their transition using that platform?
So Kira is really interesting in that it keeps recording, and like you're on this very set timeline for the entire interview. So I would definitely prepare for that. Funny story: my sister walked in the middle of one of my unrecorded sessions, so that definitely threw me off a little. But it was definitely. It felt like a real interview in that someone was asking a question and then you only have a specific amount of time to complete, but you're in the comfort of your own home, so that kind of lends this air of familiarity around it, which most scholarship interviews are not like.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a different experience because when I saw a video-based interview, I thought it was more of a Skype interview, so I was going to be interacting face-to-face, if via a webcam of some sort. With a real person, and that's not necessarily how this interview goes. So while you do see someone at the other end, it's a recorded visage of them asking you a question, and then you record your response in return. So it can be a little bit challenging in that you don't get to feedback off of that interpersonal moment, and so you can't really read body language, and that might spike some nerves for you. And that's okay, because I felt that same way, and I'm here. so don't worry about that. Some pieces of advice I would is there is a practice function through that Kira. Definitely take advantage of that. You can use it as many times as you want before you actually begin your application. So I would definitely recommend taking some time to just get familiar with that platform, what it's like to record a response to a question that seems on the fly, and then it'll give you, I think, the option to play that back in that practice session just so you can kind of see how your performance is. And then, as always, if you're doing it in the comfort of your home in your bedroom, still put on a nice shirt and make sure your bed is made. It is an interview, and so it's something to just be mindful of while you're there. But other than that, don't let the nerves kind of ruin that for you. So it can be challenging, but it's also just a really good application for everyone to get the fair chance at scholarship. So we thank you for your time in taking that as well.
Yeah. It just reminds me of that one video that went viral with that person who was doing that live broadcast and the kid
And then
walks
the
in.
child walks in. Yeah.
So we're very patient. I've seen a lot of things on the videos, from cursing to on accident that folks didn't hope to get on camera. And before that, we used to do something else more like Skype. And so I'd get jealous when I'd see somebody in like New York City in some beautiful backdrop and be like, oh, I wish I was there. It's a great opportunity to do it at your own pace. And again, there's a lot of patience with this process. So I also want to just talk about some of our applicants who may be in a place where they're having an issue with access to internet, or maybe some of our international or rural living students here in the United States as well. If there's any issues at all with kind of access to doing the Kira interview, just contact our office and we'll try to work with you to find a way to get you access to that interview or an alternate means. But for the most part, we really do like this process. So we actually have some questions that were submitted ahead of time, and so we're going to try to go through these. And if it makes sense for me or the panelists to answer it, we'll definitely do that. And then we'll definitely wrap up near the end and show you again those requirements for the applications and kind of do a little bit of a closing. So if you don't mind, we'll just go ahead and get started with this first question. So it says, this is a student who's from Uganda, East Africa. That's awesome, because I was born in Uganda, shout out. So the country definitely, the national language is English, and there's English taught through primary and secondary school. So could you be exempted from the English test requirement? So there are some universities in Uganda that are English teaching, and so we do have a listing. If you go online or if you contact our office, we can tell you what those institutions are in those respective countries. And so if your university definitely is an English instruction school, then it may be eligible, and so we'll need to see your specific institution that you went to, and we can confirm, and that's for any student internationally, if that's the case in your respective country. Again, there's certain criteria you can see online. We really stick to those criteria. Those are not criteria that are set by us. Those are national criteria, and so we want to make sure that we are in compliance with those requirements. The second question is the waiver to access a recommendation. They want to know what that part means. So yeah, when you're applying to jobs or graduate school, they usually have a prompt that asks you to waive access to recommendation. What this means is you're asking somebody to give you a recommendation, and in turn, you are waiving the right to see the recommendation they write for you. So this is why it's really critical that you find somebody that you know can be a positive reference for you. And so there's some self-awareness that we're going to push back on you to say that you are reflecting and think about who are people who can speak positively to your experiences. So what you are waiving is the right that once that person submits that reference, that you won't have a chance to access that information anymore. So that's exactly what that means. So be kind of aware of that when you're considering who you want to recommend you. We don't have oftentimes where people make wrong choices, but occasionally it does happen where people will have not picked the right person. So vet those people so that you can make sure you can trust that part of the process, because you're going to need to check that piece. Question about the GRE score: how much weight is on the GRE score, and how much does it play in the admission decision? It plays a part. We have a holistic review process, and those are not just words. We have people who you can have an outstanding GRE score, but if you don't take time with your personal statement, your references, maybe your experiences aren't great, and maybe there's some other areas, then it's just not going to have as much of a bearing as somebody who has a lower GRE score, has great experiences, has a great personal statement, has great references. So it's a holistic review. So it is part of the application. It is not all of the application. So if you can do well in the GRE, do well. That's only going to benefit you, but it is not the only game in town when it comes to making an admission decision. If you graduated with a communication degree, what classes do you have to make up when it comes to social work and public health? And so Kellen, were you a communication degrees person?
I was a communication major, and not the employable kind. So you were in good company. I can talk good, and that's about it. So the only requirement that I would say is in more consideration to the public health degree, like my colleague Sarah, you do have to make sure that you're making up for that human biology requirement. And a good way to do that is through a community college if you live here in the United States, or whatever access to public education you have outside of the United States. Many of those options are available to you online. But as far as social work goes, the only consideration that would necessarily be off the table for you is advanced standing, but you don't have any prerequisites for that. So communication, woohoo.
Very good. I think sometimes we find ourselves studying things in undergrad that are actually always going to be beneficial, but they're never going to hurt you. So while we're on it, what did the two of you consider? If you can reflect about your application process, what are some of the things that you like what made you nervous, maybe looking back, what did you do to prepare for your application as you were moving into the overall application process? What are the things that each of you respectively consider for social work and for public health?
Well, I think first, the three parts that I focused most on in my application were, of course, the personal statement, the analytical essay, and my recommendations. I basically just laid out the entire application. But one thing that I think kind of elevated for me was giving my recommenders enough time to write their recommendation letters for me. So that was, I reached out to them 3 months in advance of the date that I wanted the letters to be submitted for, just to give them ample time. And then, so that was the very first thing I did. I was like, hey, I'm applying to this program. The deadline is December. It is now August. Would you mind writing a letter for me? And then I moved through the personal statement after that. But
I definitely agree that I also focused on my recommendations, my personal statement, and then after that, I was really nervous for some reason about getting all of my details organized on SOFAs, and so I did a lot of work in that. And also, I told my recommendation writers that about a year in advance, because I had a really long process out of undergrad, telling them that I was going to apply, these are my deadlines, sending them my statement of purpose ahead of time, even though it definitely changed after that. And so kind of giving myself time, giving them time to really read through it, write through it, and get through it.
Great. So Sarah, I want to stay with you on this next question here. So this person looks like they're going to be looking at epidemiology, but this is a broader question, and I think this you can answer for both social work and public health. But from your public health standpoint, as you're looking at or specializations, what's the process for finding faculty mentors? They're asking about did you do any of that before? Or are you anticipating that coming up here within your first year? If you can talk about faculty mentorships.
So I definitely, when I was an undergrad, I had a lot of research experience because I studied biochemistry, and so I was able to reach out to get mentors in undergrad, and this process is very similar in grad school. I reached out to a couple of professors because even if you're not just doing EpiBio, you have a lot of research opportunities within the Brown School. So right now I'm actually working with the Prevention Research Center doing some policy-related research, and I work with Professor Ross Brownson, and he's been very helpful in kind of navigating the process of going from straight science STEM research to more of a qualitative, quantitative, mixed methods type of research opportunity. And so it's very similar to undergrad in that it's really on you, but it's not, they're very approachable.
Excellent. Yeah, so one of the things I do know for sure is that at some point in your process, if you have not established somebody through your informal relationships, you'll definitely get one that goes a long way. We're going to keep this on the two of you, and we're going to ask about, in your personal statement, how did you balance your being vulnerable and sharing your story with maintaining professionalism?
It's a great question, and it's one that I, as a student ambassador in the admissions office, get a lot from incoming applicants. And so I first want to say that we are very validating of everyone's experiences that they have had, but in that personal narrative statement, you want to talk in that vulnerable sense, so long as it can emphasize the passion that you're bringing to the work that you do. If you're coming from a place of trauma, definitely recognize that the trauma is in existence for you, and also leave it in the light of this is how I see the degree, whether it be public health or social work, working for me, and how I can apply that to the populations in which I plan to work. So kind of just always taking that growing element of the vulnerability that you're looking to put forth, rather than just telling an entire narrative of that vulnerability or piece of trauma or whatever past experience it is that you are bringing to the table. So translating from experience to aspiration, I think, is the best way to do that.
I agree. It's kind of akin to writing, I guess, like an op-ed piece for like a newspaper, where you want to kind of take them through what's happening, take them through all of the experiences that led you to get to a certain point, but you don't want to necessarily overshare or get too maybe crass with your experiences. But you really want to keep them with you while you're talking about your experiences without making yourself feel like you've really exposed too much of yourself, where you want to protect yourself, but you also want to let them know exactly what took you to where you are.
Great, thank you both. I got to tell you, we do have a few more questions that we're going to go through. There is a party going on, and I'm like, I want to be there, but we're going to stay with you for a little bit longer to make sure we get to some of your questions and before we wrap up here. All right, so this question's, I guess I'll take this next question. What are the common parts of the written pieces, both personal statement and analytical essay, that people overlook or could strengthen? And I think that both Sarah and Kellen spoke to this really well, but again, being able to tell your story and finding the proper balance in that. I think people often overlook answering all the prompts. That's probably going to be your one of the biggest maybe missteps that an applicant can make on both the personal statement and an analytical essay, is that they may answer 2 or 3 of the prompts, but they may not answer all of them. And so it's really important that you do answer that. Overlooking your grammatical errors or spell checking or anything like that, I think that's an important piece. So take time with it to make sure that you're showing us a writing statement that's strong. And then the last thing I'll say is either this happens more often, turning a statement in that's too short. So we tell you 2 pages and you turn in a 1.5-page personal statement. To me, that tells me, and it tells a lot of the community members, that an applicant hasn't taken enough time to reflect. Because if I ask you just about yourself and what's influencing you, that should be a 2-page paper alone. I mean, that's really, so taking time to reflect and being able to answer all the prompts and making sure you're filling up the paper with 2 pages, single space. But then, of course, the other option, of course, and misstep would be going long and not knowing kind of where to pull back. And because if you're submitting a 3 or 4-page paper to us, we'll definitely read it. We're more, but we have a lot of applications to read, and you will probably be penalized for that. So really, when we say 2-page single space, it's 2-page single space, and we're being very clear. So just go with what we're saying and make sure that you follow that. Again, this is just an effort to be very clear and upfront so that there's no mistaking on any of our parts as far as what the expectation is. So that's a great question. Thank you for whoever submitted that. As far as MPH Epi Bio applicant, there's a question about should they spend more time doing research or volunteer work? I'm out of my depth on this one, so do you have an opinion on this?
I feel like you should do whatever speaks to you. If you really like doing research, you should do research. If you really like doing volunteer work, I don't think, because when you apply for the MPH, you're not necessarily applying for the EpiBio concentration, and so it matters, but you should do what speaks to you, not what you think makes you look pretty, I guess.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you know what, thank you. Because in a sense, I heard this question from both public health and social work applicants, which is, do I have this leadership opportunity that I can do this semester right before I apply, or this summer, should I go and do an internship or a research opportunity? Will that look good on my application? And in the end, it's really about doing what you're interested in, doing things where you can be a contribution and making a difference, and having more depth of experience, more than breadth, and having a bunch of little opportunities. And so I think be authentic, essentially. Do what matters to you and where you feel like you're making a difference. And I think that will stand out more to the application committee, the review committee, than anything else. So that was great. All right, what's the difference between getting an MPH in epidemiology versus an MS in epidemiology? Honestly, you'll have to consult. We do have some opportunities on the medical campus, and I would really not want to kind of get next to that, but I'd ask that you would kind of take a look at what those program offerings have and really differentiate. I can say this from a public health perspective, because we're looking at from our school, we're looking at this idea of equity and impact. And we're going to really be looking at it from equity lens, and so I think that might be more of a school difference. It might be what you're into, or it may be that you have a real interest in doing research, and so one of the programs may be more appealing than another. But again, I would really ask that you get in touch with some of our faculty or connect with some of our colleagues on the medical campus, and they're going to be able to better help you, assist you with kind of differentiating that. All right, so I have a 2.8 GPA. Should I still apply for the December deadline, or see if my fall semester grades can raise my GPA, then apply in the spring? So this is advice for not only that situation, but any situation. Apply when you believe you're going to have your strongest application. If you believe your GPA is going to go up a little bit, I'm not going to tell you one way or another on this. If you feel like that's going to help you, then wait. If you feel like it's not going to raise that much, then you can apply now. I think that's totally up to you. But apply when you think you're going to have the strongest application. So one of the things that's pretty static is your transcript's going to be pretty static, right? And so is your experiences, like your summer internship right before the application, your fall internship right before the application is not going to make a big difference at this stage of the game. So really focus on the areas of the application where you feel like are more dynamic. Your personal statement, your analytical essay, your references, telling us your story about your comprehensive resume or CV. Those are the areas where you actually have more of a say of expanding, expounding, making a difference in your application. So I think that's probably where you have more say and more control. But again, for your respective question, if you think that's going to make a difference, then it's okay to wait. I mean, I'd say waiting between December 15th and January 15th, for me, if that made a difference, I might wait. If it didn't make a difference, I would. Essentially, I'm talking around this one. I'm not going to answer it for you. I would just say submit your application when you feel like it's your strongest application. All right, so we are really at the end of our time here. I just want to say thank you for those of you who joined us live and took some time this afternoon. I know I met quite a few students in Arizona this past week, as well as Alabama, so shout out to all of you. Miss you already. And so thanks for watching live, and for those of you who get a chance to watch us on the replay, definitely thanks for checking us out. I hope that you got some really great information. I also want to thank my peers here, my colleagues here, Sarah and Kellen, for sharing us their great information and their great insights. Just one of the things I really want to remind you is when you're applying to this program, you don't have to do this on your own. Do not hesitate to contact our office. We hear this feedback from both students who join us here at the Brown School, as well as some of the schools that we talk to around the country, and they tell us that they don't hear programs that talk about really working with applicants to make sure that they can submit their best application. And I think that's what makes us positions us to have one of the strongest top 20 Number 17, public health programs and the best social work program in the country is that, that we have faculty who care, we have students who care, and then we have staff who are here to support you. And so you don't have to be a student with us right now. You can take advantage of kind of that quality of program right now, and it's based on relationships. So we want to encourage you to do that. So we have a few more slides before we wrap up. Again, just to go over the application requirements again, the standardized tests are not required for the MSW or the MSP. There's no scholarship interview required for MSP. There's no prerequisites for the MSW and MSP, but you'll need the human biology completed either before or within your first year of the public health degree program. You are required to take the GRE, and there's only one essay for MPH. There's not an analytical essay for the MPH application. As far as your next steps, you can go online to apply to our programs. There's those reminders of those dates. The priority deadlines are December 15th, March 1st, and then we become rolling after that. Again, the timelines are pretty quick turnarounds. When you get your decision, you will get your merit-based scholarship decision once you get your decision. So you do not have to wait for us. Once you apply and your application is complete and we review it, if we tell you're admitted, you're going to know exactly what your funding is for 2 years from a merit-based standpoint. And then as far as your next steps, actually we have our next virtual info session is Wednesday, November 7th on the International Student Experience. It's going to be held by one of my favorite colleagues, and she's going to bring in a group of students hopefully to talk to you about their experiences transitioning as international students. My contact information is up there. You can email me directly at jwalewa@willstool.edu. And so I'd love to hear from you. You can also contact us at brownadmissions@willstool.edu to get a hold of our student ambassadors if you want to find out more. If there's something that you connected with and you want to get some more details, please ask for Kellen or Sarah Kang. There's a lot of Sarahs in our office, so make sure you ask for Sarah K, and you'll get a hold of her. And then we have about 5 more weeks of travel. And so you can see up there that we're going to be in a lot of different places. And so I think my next places are going to be at St. Mary's, Notre Dame, Pepperdine University, Puerto Rico. I don't want to brag about that one. And then Elon University. But we have Sarah Birch and Sarah Dexter, who you may have seen in previous videos. And so come check us out. We want to get to meet you face to face. If you email us, and we're going to be in your town during these dates, and you want to grab coffee, you can email Sarah, or I, or email the Brown Admissions website, and we'll be able to see if we can connect with you when we're in your city. So we look forward to seeing you, and we look forward to seeing you on November 7th. Thank you.